In the heart of Luxor, you'll find the temples of Karnak, dedicated first and foremost to the god Amun-Re. Karnak is an absolutely massive temple complex that would easily fit St. Peter's Basilica from Rome and St. Paul's Cathedral from London just in the main hypostyle hall. Dozens of ram-headed sphinxes line our path into the temple complex. To walk through Karnak is to take a stroll through over 1,000 years of Egyptian history. As a general rule, the further in you go, the older the buildings. When you first walk in to the right, there's sort of a little ramp or a hill made out of mud and stone and brick that goes right up against the wall. This ramp is actually how ancient Egyptians built high walls, and it gives us a clue as to how they may have built all of their ancient sites, including possibly even the pyramids. The largest area of the complex, the Great Court, once stood here. Although all that's left now are some ram-headed sphinxes, this column, the last of 10 that once stood here, and this statue of Ramses II. Beyond the Great Court is the most impressive area of Karnak that still stands, the Great Hypostyle Hall. 134 colossal columns create a forest of stone. Each column is covered in hieroglyphics, and they're topped with the shape of a papyrus plant. In ancient times, these columns were a symphony of color, a little of which remains today. When the Nile would flood, this area would be filled with several feet of water. That, combined with the fact that there was once a roof on this area, gave this whole room a dark, swampy atmosphere, just like the banks of the Nile, where the papyrus plant grew. To give you a sense of how absolutely massive these columns are, here's a little demonstration. It takes 12 tourists with arms fully outstretched to wrap around a single one. It's a little fun to get lost in here. Take your time and wander through the columns, crane your neck, and observe the intricate etchings. Find a little space to be alone and soak in the wonder that is the Great Hypostyle Hall at Karnak. All right, now here is a very short little family ancestry for you here. So much of this was built by Amenhotep III. Now he built a lot onto Karnak. He also built a great temple on the other side of the Nile, close to the Valley of the Kings, most of which is gone now except for the Colossi of Memnon. And that was the largest temple complex ever built, which is crazy. So Amenhotep III had a son, Amenhotep IV, who changed his name to Akhenaten. Now, Akhenaten is oftentimes called the heretic king because he basically changed the state religion to worshiping only one god, which I think was the god Amun-Ra, and himself. So not really monotheistic, kind of a little bit. But he basically was known as a heretic. He kind of changed the whole style of art for a while, which was fascinating. You can look at statues of him versus statues of other pharaohs, and his definitely looks very different. His wife was named Nefertiti. She also was depicted very differently in the very famous statue of her with her tall hat on and whatever. She's beautiful and all that. That's all that. So that's Akhenaten. Now, Akhenaten had a son, and his name was Tutankhamun, also known as King Tut. And it was basically King Tut's job to revert the state religion back to the polytheistic many ancient gods of Ptah, Amun-Ra, all of them. That was sort of his lot in life. Now, he died really young, and then he would have been a relatively unknown pharaoh had it not been for the fact that in 1922, Howard Carter found his tomb in the Valley of the Kings, and now King Tut is probably the most famous pharaoh of all time. So I guess it just goes to show you that sometimes if you go in, you do the work, you keep your head down for 3,000 years, you might just become one of the most famous people on the planet. Amenhotep III, Akhenaten, and King Tut were far from the only pharaohs that built onto Karnak. One of the only female pharaohs we know of, Hatshepsut, built this towering obelisk, the tallest in Egypt. Seti I and the great builder himself, Ramses II, added on the hypostyle hall, and dozens of other pharaohs added, removed, rebuilt, and enhanced this complex, culminating in a patchwork of courts, temples, obelisks, and statues. Sacred lakes such as this one were both sources of drinking water and for use in purification rituals by priests. One of the more quirky features at Karnak is this, the scarab beetle statue. Legend has it that if you walk around it 7 times counterclockwise, you'll have good luck and prosperity. The innermost sanctuary, commonly referred to as the Holy of Holies, was the most sacred place in all of the temple. Only the pharaoh or a high priest in his stead were allowed to enter here. It was in this room that ancient priests would daily come and honor a statue of Amun-Re. As you walk through these ancient halls, sanctuaries, statues, pylons, and obelisks, you get an overwhelming sense of wonder. This is ancient Egypt at its most monumental.